We've been running now for around 37 years. We were founded by a guy called Barry Osborne many moons ago, who used to help lead Mission for Christ before this. Our heart really is, how do we support, love, nurture, and then encourage and inspire rural churches to think and be more missional. So we really recognise that they are an undervalued, under-resourced, under-supported, under-nurtured people group, and especially churches within them. In most villages, there will still be a Christian presence, but it's how do we help them to get that first love back of how do they start to share about Jesus in their spaces. So I took over from Barry a couple of years ago, and for the most part we've been on quite a journey, as I'm sure you guys are about to undertake. So I had to pretty much start from scratch. So Barry gave me a couple of Excel spreadsheets, some old accounts, and a bank account, and that was pretty much the starting point. So for the last 2 years, we've been putting a lot of framework and building blocks in place, which is one of the reasons I reached out to you, Chris, and said, I've just been on this journey. Although we've not come out of anywhere, I feel like we've come out of the wilderness and had to build from the get-go. So we primarily support rural churches. That is our bread and butter, and we go at no cost to those churches. And it's not saying that we just want to go support leaders or lay leaders in those spaces. It's how do we get everybody engaged in the mission field, in engaging their communities and helping them to find and follow Jesus for themselves, to see churches being a visible and credible piece of the community. So I did have a PowerPoint, but I feel like as we're a bit fewer in number, I don't want to overburden you by sharing a screen and having some images, unless that's the way you'd like me to go. I can't see anyone's particularly.
Yeah. We've got 2 more screens coming in when I let them in, so but it's your call.
Great. So yeah, let them in. Okay. Well, let me use the PowerPoint. It will help keep us on track. Because I'm not in my usual abode, it's great. So we just want to help churches think and be more missional. We're a small staff team. There's only 6 of us and a volunteer. So we've got 2 mission enablers that oversee our tailored consultations, which I'll share with you in a moment. We have a network lead, and then we have a specific CYF department as well. So you can see their lovely faces. They're a great team. Kezia is currently on maternity leave, having just had her first child. So how do we support churches? We have the resources cupboard, which were a charity in their own right until June last year, because most churches that we engage with in rural communities are saying, how do we support children, youth and families work? We've got 1 or 2 children in the village, or we've got a few teenagers. We're just not quite sure what to do. So actually in June, we brought in the resources cupboard who were a separate charity to be our CYF department. So we're able to support churches both short-term, medium and long-term. We've also got a Bedford-based lending library of puppets and resources that churches are able to borrow from us and to work alongside us with. Also in Bedford, we've got a project that we've been doing with the Anglican Deanery in Sharnbrook. So we've got 30 churches in that deanery where we are supporting their entire children, youth and families ministry. So how do they engage with every church, with every school? So that's one of the ways that we're able to support churches, is to guide them through, support them and stand alongside them and facilitate that with some training and resources. Our flagship really though is our tailored consultations. So we recognise there isn't a programme that's going to come and solve everything in every church. Sometimes they get heralded as such, and the reality on the ground is that programmes are good, but it's the intentional conversations that you can have that are really going to start to make a difference. So our tailored consultations are a gentle process that we deliver across a day, a weekend, or through evenings or online, where we don't just bring together the leaders, because oftentimes in rural communities you've got a vicar or a minister that's covering 6 to 8 churches, and to say you've got to be the one to spearhead all the mission is not the way forward. So we want to bring together the whole church. Oftentimes that is 15 to 20 people, from Betty that's been there since she was born and she's now in her 90s. And I'll be honest, most consultations, our average age tends to be around 70, just by the very nature of the communities that we're serving. But in those days, we go through quite a simple process. We unpack what mission is to start, and we don't get into complexities, but we boil down to the Matthew 28 version that we're all called to go and share. We're all called to share the hope that we have. And we're all called to go and make disciples, and we're going out in his name by his power. So it doesn't mean that it's about the projects and the programs again. It's just that simple awareness for people. Have you ever really stopped of what life would be like if you weren't a Christian? Like, what kind of things would you miss? And oftentimes people in these days are like, I'd miss companionship through hardship. I'd miss that daily connection. I'd miss the healing, the answers to prayer. And mission is simply realizing that the person you live next door to, the person that you're meeting on the street, would probably value those exact same things. So how do we share that everyday part of our life, that everyday walk with Jesus, in the most simplistic of terms? And then we explore what God has gifted them with. What are they good at? What do they love to do? And then what are the needs in their community? Where are they already serving? What are they already up to? And then we bring those together and going, what 3 things are you going to start, or change to be more intentional in your mission? Now, we've got a whole range of things that people come up with, from very simple terms of going, we've never offered prayer as part of our coffee mornings that we run. I've never invited my neighbour for a coffee and a piece of cake and talked about what my faith means. I've never invited somebody to church or to one of our community events. Through to in Derbyshire, we worked with Holy Trinity in Matlock Bath, and they've never done anything with the Matlock illuminations that they have there every year right outside the church on the river. Hundreds of thousands of people come and descend on the community. Well, last year they built a boat and took part in the illuminations for the first time and engaged with the Boat Society. They've had incredible conversations. They've had new people connecting into the church. They've even the boat now is on display with a little mention about the church and why they did it, and the need for church and Christians working in the community. So it can spread a whole realm of different things and ideas. We had 2 Methodist churches and an Anglican church do this process together, and all of them separately came up with the idea that we want to close our coffee morning, because we only do it every other week or once a month, and we'd like to collaborate with the other 3 churches to do one every week, because together we can do more. Together we'll meet the needs of this community and be able to share about Jesus on a more consistent and regular basis, and actually be there for people in their time of need. So that would be our flagship, the thing that we would love to do in every church up and down the country. We also support through our networks. So we have an online network of people that are engaged in mission in their rural community or have a heart for mission, where we come together once a month for encouragement, for support, for prayer, and to also help to hold each other to account. And we've just started to launch those in person in regions as well. So our last one in Salisbury, we had 14 people come from quite a breadth of churchmanship and background, and it was an incredibly beneficial time because ministry can feel isolating. And I know you as Waterways chaplains can probably feel that as you walk along those towpaths and are engaging with people. And we know that there is an epidemic around mental health crises. So we want to be able to draw people together to be able to encourage, support, and release them into what God has for them. And then alongside all those things, we have toolkits and free resources that people can download and use off our website. So the toolkits are like a mission audit for churches or individuals or small groups to go through. So our mission toolkit just takes you through an easy process of, am I doing what I'm meant to be doing? And then we have our CYF one around children, youth and families specifically. The booklet in the middle of the visit in a church, that's our newest one. That's the most expensive thing we do at 30 pence. Everything else we do is free. But that's for anyone who's new into a church, a child from Key Stage 1 or Key Stage 2, if they're coming in for a baptism, a wedding, a funeral, they happen to come with their family on a one-off occasion, or a school's visiting, we encourage churches to have these to be able to give out, and it helps them to understand what church is about in an accessible format. So we've got all those things, lots of good stuff. I'm going to stop sharing because I've not been able to see you the whole way through, and I don't know if you're still with me, so that's good. You are. That's a real bonus. So yeah, we just want to love rural churches, to share with them what would be best from our experience and from our perspective. We've got our own things in our toolkit that we'd love people to use, but actually one of the reasons I wanted to connect with Waterways Chaplaincy was because a number of our churches are near the waterways. There are a huge number, and so actually what greater mission field could there be for their community than engaging with what you guys are up to, doing this together. And so as part of me being here tonight, I'm interested in what you're doing so that we can help our churches to engage by any means. I have worked for Christian organizations in the past that would only tell you about their resources. I'm definitely not one of those people. We want to help churches to do what they're called to do by whatever means that would be. So yeah, that's a little bit about who we are, a little bit of our background. We're not a complicated organization. We just want to be able to love, support and encourage them through training, resources and networks. Is that a good starter for 10 there, Chris?
Yeah, I think that's 10 out of 10. Very clear. I was smiling with the idea that we're only a small charity with 6 employees, and I was like, 6? Hooray! But it's just
You've
a different
got a mammoth
shape.
amount of volunteers though, Chris.
Well, exactly, a mammoth amount of volunteers. And yeah, thank you ever so much for that. Really, really clear. I've got a bundle of questions, but I'm not going to monopolize it. I guess I'd like to hear from you, the chaplains, your thoughts about what resonated with you. Maybe again the usual. What questions have you got, and what little sort of weird neurons are firing in your head as to, oh, we could do this, we could do that. I wonder. So some sort of sensible thoughts, but I'd love to hear the slightly mad thoughts as well. and to see what dreams you might have, or what embryos of ideas you might have. And it could be that local to you churches are coming to mind that maybe Bob needs to connect with as well. So over to you guys. Charles.
You're on mute,
muted
Charles.
Now, sorry.
To speak.
You're still muted.
Is that better? I can
Away
do it
you
myself. There we go. All right. Hello, Bob, and thank you very much. Just a few ideas of what we do. I'm based in Gloucestershire, on the Gloucester and Sharpness Canal. And I'm also part of the what we call the Stroudwater team of churches, which is 15 tiny village churches squashed between the Cotswold Edge and the River Severn. And the canal goes right through the middle of them. Now, what we've been able to do, both as a local team of Waterways Chaplains and with my own group of local churches, is it started off every year we do a Christmas carol service out on the canal bank. It's never rained yet, but the numbers have been steadily growing. Last year we counted, what was it, Steve, 180 people, and they come such a long way for it now, which is great. So what started off as a parish thing for our own parish and for our own stretch of canal, people are coming sort of 20, 30, 40 miles just to come and stand in the cold. So that's been a great step forward for us. And on the back of that, now we have started a remembrance service on the canal bank. That was something the boaters asked for themselves. This year was the first year. We had 32, 35, something in that sort of region. About 2/3 of which were probably from the boating community. And the other new thing we've tried this year was an Easter parade. One of the churches invited all the boating community to the church for afternoon tea, and we thought we'd build an Easter parade into it. However, Storm David put the kibosh on the parade, but we still did get a good number of the boating people come to church for free food. So it's great steps forward. Now, what is good about that is that it's that the local church who are now coming up with the ideas. It's the local church that are providing the tea and the cakes and what have you, but it's the Waterways chaplains on the patch who are putting it all together, and it's working very well.
That's great. So one of our team, Steffi, he's in Tetbury.
Oh yes.
So not a million miles from you. So
no, it's not at all.
Yeah. So I'd be interested for him to come along to your next thing, just so that we can see and experience that, because I think that's a great idea. We've had a number of churches that have repositioned how they've done stuff, simply because they've realised if we don't go do this in community, the community aren't going to come to us. So there's again another church in Derbyshire that's grown. It's tripled in size since we went and did a consultation with them. And the first simple thing they did was they moved their carol service out of the church and into the pub. And they now run a Bible study in the local pub, and they do quite a lot of most of their major events now down in the pub, because no one wants to travel up in the dark to the church up the hill. So I think that's great that you've utilised, you've listened to the community. That's a great story.
Well, I'm happy to meet Steph. Steve, Chris, would you be able to pass on my email address?
Yes.
Steph to get in touch.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Steve, Bert, or Steve and Fiona.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, when you go into a church, how much are you purely there to facilitate and listen and allow the people themselves to shape the sort of vision and the plan, and how much do you actually feed in ideas like the fact that they might be near to a waterway, or that there might be something that they can do with the local pub and so on? Do you tend to find that you have to open people's eyes a bit, or does it tend to all be very much what the ideas that they come up with themselves?
Oh, I'd love to say it's 100% what they come up with. I think we do smatter in a whole smorgasbord of different ideas as the conversation starts to progress. Most of it is done round tables and then feeding back across the room. So in those spaces, we are able to share some of the stories and some of the reflections we've got. Most churches would like to think they'll come up with everything themselves. Like, we never force them to go and do something. They have to choose for themselves. But most churches we go into have already lost all their passion for mission and actually doing stuff. So it's trying to move them from that position can be a little bit difficult. So to inspire them with stories and what we're seeing working, but we have to listen to them first, because the contexts are so drastically different. Because a church in the Cotswolds is very different to a church up in the northeast, for instance, and the community that surrounds them. So we probably, the first half of the day, we listen and bring in a smattering of story, but then as we progress, we'll bring in more precise and influential ideas that might support them moving forward.
So if they've lost their passion for mission, how do you get invited? Because you'd have thought it would be the sort of thing where a church was going, we're really keen to do mission but don't really know how to do it, would be the logical invite, as opposed to a church that's lost it.
Yeah. So quite a lot of our invites tend to come from the minister or the vicar or whoever's in charge, and it's often when there's been a changing of the guard. So a new minister's come in and gone, how do I re-energize? How do I re-envision? That tends to be the normal space that we get invited through.
Don't stand on ceremony. How's your tea, Jim? Nice?
Right. Do you want to say something?
Yeah,
Mike,
It's going
Mike, go
on
for
the
it, Mike.
computer at last.
we've just got in now, Chris.
Okay. Yes, Mike.
Welcome. Welcome.
Yeah, Malcolm, but Mike's got his hand up. Sorry, that's what I was.
Yeah,
Start then, Mike, and I'll.
putting my hand up made the mute button disappear. Yeah, I mean, I'm in probably a slightly different position to the one that Steve was indicating just now, in that, to me, the most important thing is mission, not a mission. And mission, and I think to some extent the way you described it as well, which is an inherent part of ministry in total, and we minister to the people on the canals. But one, and in my own particular area, my own benefice, there are 4, I think it is, of the parishes out of the group that have the Kennet Nathan running through them. The others are just a short distance away. People know be able to say more about it from a town point of view, but from a rural point of view, we moved there 5 years ago, and one of the things that surprised us is the extent to which people in the churches, and to some extent the people in the community, really don't have any connection with, or even recognition, or even sympathy with people on the canals, particularly people living on the canals, but not exclusively. So one very, very small thing which I've managed to achieve is that the Benefits puts out a weekly sheet that includes a prayer list, which quite typically has a list of streets and roads across the benefice, which cycles through monthly. And I managed to get added to that the Kennet and Avon Canal. People who live on the Kennet and Avon Canal, for each of the different areas. So at least those people who use the prayer list have some prompt to recognise that the people who live on the canal are as much part of the parish as anybody else.
Yeah, no, that's good.
Thank you, Mike. I wonder if there's that inherent bias to bricks and mortar and folk that live in caravan sites, in mobile homes that literally don't have houses, are marginalised by the structures of society, and our witnesses focusing, frontlining is mission enough to some degree. But Andrew, you had your hand up next.
Yeah, slightly offbeat because it's not directly a Waterways Chaplaincy thing. One of the churches that I'm ministering as a lay reader or lay minister is 3 rural churches in a combined benefice in North Warwickshire, and I think we'd be very keen to get involved with you. So I'll contact you or I'll get my director to contact you on that, because I think that would be really helpful.
Right.
Grand, good. We'll take a cut of the funds that are raised as well.
Yeah. From
Howie,
that nothing
you
that
were
we
on
charge,
next.
that's a good thing. Yeah.
What, me, was that?
Yeah, you're next. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just wondering, do you have any contact with things like the Arthur Rank Centre or Chaplaincy Derbyshire or AgriChap, the various agricultural chaplaincies? Do you do any work with them?
Yeah, so we're good friends with Matt and the Arthur Rank Centre, and as we said earlier, rural ministries, we're often confused for them. So yeah, we're good friends with those. I'm in Nottinghamshire, so yeah, I've been to meet the guys over at Derbyshire Chaplaincy. So we've actually got a conference that us, the Arthur Rank, rural ministries, the Methodist Church, the Church of England, and churches together in England are doing together, called Love Rural, which is happening the 19th, 20th of October at Yarnfield in Stone. So yeah, good friends with them. I meet with Matt often. Yeah, love what they do. We've all got a very slightly different take on how we help the church. But yeah, we're all in the same game. How do we support and love?
Malcolm, you were next, I think.
Okay, thanks, Chris. Yeah, Malcolm and Stephanie from Market Drayton in Shropshire, which is a farming community, a dairy farmer. If you think of Muller's yogurts, that's where they come from. And Palethorpe's pies, just thinking about the inner man there. Anyway, we actively go up and down the canal in Market Drayton, also Norbury and Nosal and other points. For the first history, we were the first chaplains from Birmingham up to Ellesmere Port, all across all that area, but that's going back, 12, 15 years ago. Anyway, what's happening now is that we get invited to take part in events. So we were at Norbury this year. We've been there for a few years, and one year they were in a bit of a jam. We said, got nobody to do a service, it's in the programme. Can you do anything? So fortunately, somebody joined the church who sounds like Adele, the pop singer. And there's a lovely narrowboat outside a pub. It's a winding hole with a Oxide cafe there and the pub there. And we did a very impromptu songs of praise there. That opened up lots of opportunities to talk to people. And we obviously pray with boaters, and we've just got to know people. All I'll say this year, it took us 3 hours to walk a mile on the canal. We got our share days on everything. Everybody wanted to talk to us. And the conversation we have are absolutely super. So in parts of rural ministries, you know. But so that's the example of it, and people just gravitate to us. People know us. We have been doing it for quite a long time now, so that's why. Now, also we've got coming up is No Ceremony, and that was rather good actually, because we were asked to do the prayers by the organising committee. There's Methodist Church there, Anglican Church, and a Free Church there. So we asked to do the prayers. Well, we did the prayers, then the sound system failed. Now, my wife Stephanie is a black country comedian, so we didn't need much invitation. She came and did it. I obviously explained about Waterways Chaplains, and we had a lot of conversations then. We've obviously been invited to go back this year. And then we've got a good involvement with the boat traders on the canals, and they'll be coming to Market Drayton in July this year. So we'll have a good arrangement with them. Obviously, we naturally gravitate to them anyway, as we're walking up and down towpaths and look after people. So it's very inclusive. Obviously, Market Drayton is a dairy farming area, and there's a market on every Wednesday, and we'll go up there and talk to people. People get to know us, and it's quite exciting, really, because my latest gimmick is to go up to somebody I've never met in the past before, look them right in the eye with a twinkle in my eye and say, well, I didn't think I'd meet you today. And you can see the grey matters going. But the conversations that arise from that are amazing. It gravitates out then to a charity cafe in the town. And we've been there today as well, because the weather wasn't too good for the market.
Malcolm, I'm going to be cutting you off.
Yeah, sorry. But just, I think Bob's got the point, haven't you?
Yeah, lots going on.
I think that's great, and I think you've hit it there. In that, the thing I love about rural is the connection with people, and you know your neighbours, and you know the people. And I love that a lot of the churches that I've been to speak at in rural communities, people arrive late because as they've walked from part of the village to the other part, they stop and talk. They see the neighbour, and I think that's the beautiful part about rural. That's the beautiful part about being on the waterways. It's a different way of life and a different pace. So I was in Market Drayton a few months ago at the Deanery Synod meeting, presenting to them. Lovely place. Yeah.
Steve, or Steve and Fiona.
My turn this time. No, I just thought I'd sort of let Bob really know that I think you've already got a sense that there's a whole variety amongst the chaplaincy, and ourselves, and I can see Pauline's online and Chris are online, are three that actually live on our boats full time. So either in a reasonably localized area, something like Chris is down in Aylesbury, or Pauline's up further north, we probably travel around a fair bit. So from a chaplaincy point of view, it's very much engaging with those that we meet as we meet them, rather than the sort of the longer term relationships that a lot of the other chaplains will build. And I think probably the aspect of that might tie in or be useful for you is, as you are engaging with churches that are on the waterways, think in terms of sort of adding in the fact that there are boaters who are Christians, who can help churches. I know, chaplaincy, explaining the work of the chaplaincy, but Canal Ministries, which is another organisation represented online, actually sort of proactively work with churches. For example, we're doing a week's mission up in Burnley. So Burnley's not rural, but but that idea of there being resources within the wider Christian community that can help churches know what it is to directly engage with the boating community, and make use of the fact that there is that sort of knowledge base if you're working with churches that are close to the water. By all means. Separately to this call, but I'd be quite interested to understand what you're doing in Wales as well at some point. But let's keep it for focused for today.
No, that's really helpful. Thank you. And it's a very sturdy looking boat that you've got, though, Steve. I'll be honest.
It's the virtual background I use for work.
Yeah, but just quickly on Wales. So we've just partnered with the Bible Society. We're running a rural conference with them in Bala at the end of June. Providing my board agree on Monday, we're about to go live with a bilingual Welsh mission enabler stationed in Wales. Because if we're going to take Wales seriously, I can't send an Englishman to go do the job.
Connect with a group called Cantigumri. Incredible guy, really committed. They are encouraging, inspiring, and equipping and resourcing churches bilingually. 37 churches planted with, not by them, but with their support over the last 2.5 years. And the leader of that, his wife, has just taken on the Bala Presbyterian College, I think it is. So they'll be moving up to Bala in July.
Right.
Passionate church planters, evangelists, and really keen to support and enable churches in Wales. So I think you'd partner really well with them.
Yeah, great. Yeah, well, I'm keen that we don't end up trying to build our own kingdom and becoming our own little silo. We want to do this together. I've just put my details in the chat as well, so if that's helpful, but I'm sure Chris will happily give you my details.
We've got 15 minutes left or so, and listening, and it struck me, or is striking me, about how your focus is on the churches and how to help them engage with mission. Our focus has been primarily with the people that we meet on the towpaths or in the reservoirs or on the rivers, and it's a very different emphasis, and yet we are aware that all our chaplains are connected to churches. There are 1,200 churches within a stone's throw of a canal, and we would have a much more stable base if we had 200 churches supporting us. But that's sort of not our focus, and we almost want it to happen by accident rather than by design. And I'm desperate to ask, what have you learned in the last 2 years of just moving away from a spreadsheet into a well-structured thing? But maybe first on that difference between rural mission supporting churches, Waterways Chaplaincy supporting the people outside the churches, and your thoughts about sort of cart and horse or priorities for us. And
yeah, I think I don't see them as being too dissimilar, because obviously we're all called to the Great Commission, and I'd like to believe that we would all be rooted within a church within our context. Obviously, the more that we are up and down the country and traveling on the waterways, then that can be more difficult. But I think that's why I love that you're doing stuff like this. And how do we do the network? Because it's important that we stay rooted with one another. Again, we can end up becoming quite siloed otherwise. So I think that's important to do. And I think, as you've said, trying to find that network of churches along the waterways is important, because if you do have those conversations, it's where do we point people towards? And I think having that space and having people like us, that if you say, oh, we've just met person X here and we're trying to find a church that might be suitable, then having people around you that are working in those areas that can easily point you and connect people, then that's also a helpful space to be. I don't know if that even answers anywhere near the question you're asking, Chris, but
I think I like the idea that you didn't say it was a binary either or, that it's definitely a grey sort of fuzzy bit in the middle. I can see Robert waving at me though, so
yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Good. One thing that might be a help is there's a certain type of church which is known as a hub church,
Yep.
which is meant to resource a deanery area and might well have facilities for children's work, basics banks, etc., etc. So you're not getting every church reinventing the wheel, but the hub churches are there to provide that much fuller cover in certain areas. Whereas many of the smaller rural churches, where you've only got half a dozen people, are probably more interested in keeping their church building open than actual mission. But the hub churches, I don't think we advertise them very well. But actually what they're doing is something I think is much more people orientated, and they attract people who are also people orientated and more mission wise. But we don't seem to let everybody know which are the mission church, which are the hub churches in a particular area.
I know a few hub churches and resource churches. Most of the ones that I know tend to be in the larger market towns, and then into cities. And sadly, I think my reflection is around half the ones that I know, once they've got the funding and once they've got that support, they've ended up growing so much that they then don't have the capacity to go support others. So I love the mentality and the idea, but I've not always seen it. And I think sometimes that's why it's not advertised as widely with some, because they've ended up having to resource their own resource in order to do what they do, because it's grown. And I think that's why we are passionate about the rural, is because, especially within the Church of England, most funding that you'll see come through from the church commissioners and through diocesan level tend to go towards the bigger areas, because you get more numbers back. But actually, one of the churches I know has grown to 45, and they're a village of 500. So for me, that's a staggering statistic to have. But it's just not recognised as often because it's still small to some extent. Sorry, Pip.
You're waving.
Yeah. You asked about dreams and batty ideas at the beginning.
Yeah.
And when we first moved onto our boat and were travelling around, we had an app which showed us where the locks and where the bridges were and a few sort of landmarks. But churches would be really good to have on some kind of an app, so that when you're going along the canal, you can think, oh, there's a coffee morning there. Oh, there's a church service which has children's facilities there. There's whatever it might be on these lovely little churches who need to be encouraged to kind of big up their resources, even if it is a little coffee morning on a Thursday afternoon. Boaters would love that, but they probably don't know about it. And so if there was some way of there being an online, because that's how people are going to know about it, if there was something which had, as you're going along, things pop up. Now, how that could happen, I have no idea, but it would be great, because boaters can't stay at the same church. You've got to move unless you've got a mooring.
Find a Church was meant to do that to some extent, but it just ends up being one more thing that a church has to administrate. And as soon as the person that did it originally leaves or goes to glory, many of the churches we support, their websites are about 30 years out of date. So it'd be great if there was an auto update thing that AI could muster and draw together. That'd be lovely.
Yeah, there are some around sort of some of the on my street type stuff, but they do need to be maintained. I think my encouragement to a canal side church would actually just be, don't forget about the canal. Put a sign up on a bridge or a little stake in the ground on the towpath. Boaters love that sort of instant engagement. So if we go through somewhere and there's a sign that says coffee morning, 10 o'clock, or 11 o'clock today or tomorrow, we will probably go. And I think that For me, it's as you're traveling around those churches, just add waterways into your thinking and encouraging the church to feel like there's a valid community there, a little bit like Chris said earlier.
I'm reminded of going to Upton Marina last January or February, so it was a bit of a tour just for my surname. But the owner of that for 30 years had been there, had never had a local clergy person into their marina. I phoned Upton Baptist Church and they did a carol service there, but it just took that first, I never thought about it, where do I begin, kind of cross-pollination both ways, because marinas are gated communities and there is that fear of pressing a key buttons, and if you're not a boater and you're coming it from land, it's a lot easier just to avoid it. But they were delighted, and they were delighted to have a local, we haven't got a chaplain in that patch, but their local Baptist minister is serving as a sort of quasi chaplain and first port of call. I've got our chaplaincy supporter map up on our website, but there's only 11 orange pins on it currently, and that's partly because I haven't kept it up to date because too many other things, but actually we haven't got a lot of church supporters that have said we would like to support, where do we sign? And that's sort of on our list of things we would like to do. But we've now just got 5 or 6 minutes. I love that idea though, Pip. Any more mad ideas out there? Any more dreams that we can dream into existence? Everything starts with imagination. Pauline, you're muted. Sorry.
Yeah, I just really want to re-emphasize what Steve went and said, because as a continuous cruiser, you're always seeing signs of, going up here to the pub where there's food and all these other things. And for churches creatively to think about putting signs up on the canal of what's happening and make sure they keep them up to date. I have to say, so many of them, like, I always go to the website, and before now it said there's a Sunday service, and you get there and it's the off week or something like that. I know a lot of these rural churches are struggling, and I get it, but it is like, we live in an age where communication is so important, and being able to go to the website and see what's happening. But as I say, just sticking notes up and taking them down when they're done, so that we're not seeing things from last November and things like that still up, would speak volumes to reaching a community that in many ways is slightly more self-contained, even in the continuous cruisers. And as Chris said, is sort of almost like there's not that reaching out to them, out to the boaters. So thinking creatively of how to reach boaters. And I think the other thing I found is that an awful lot of boaters are damaged church, I'm going to say, in that sense, in that quite a lot of them have had an experience of church and been damaged through that. And so for a church to try and win some people in the boating community, it would be great for them to find creative ways of doing that.
I saw lots of nods going on there about the sort of, why do people end up on the cut, or the church has damaged a lot of people, full stop. We just happen to see those that have come onto the boats, and it's a crying shame. But maybe it's the I was at Alv Church Marina the other day, and they were wondering if they or we could put up some signs, especially around the Elson point and the water tap, saying all the boaters use these, but if you can, sponsored by the local church, or we will take your rubbish, or whatever it is, then those facilities are being sucked out by the CRT in terms of local toilets, local showers. But the ability to have a spare washing machine and use that whilst you're having a warm space or something will be gold dust for some folk. Others, irrelevant. They've got it on their boats anyway, and it's all good. But especially those that are one step away from a tent, that might be, you know, it's not Matthew 28, it's Matthew 25, which comes first. So thank you. Any one last question or comment?
For marinas, and I've done this in quite a lot as I've been cruising, is putting up chaplaincy signs, and that is in the laundry, because people hang around in the laundry.
Yeah.
You know, they're getting washing, they're putting washing in, they're taking it out, they're putting it in the dryer, they're waiting for it to finish, whatever. That, you know, for a church, a local church, otherwise, to put a sign up in the laundry of a marina, that's where I find it gets noticed more than elsewhere.
I wonder as we go, you know, if I don't know, if you've got one thing you want us to go away thinking about, the one thing I would think, you know, if we could give to you is, if you have a church, if one of the churches that are connected has got a canal going through it, it might well be that, you know, we literally have a chaplain going through very close on a boat, or there might be one within 5 miles or whatever. Get us a call, because there's nothing better than having that relationship already sealed by a local body rather than starting cold. So yeah, I look forward to 5 phone calls a year. You know, 3 of them we can help. That will be 3 more than none. So one thing you want us to dwell on, Bob?
I guess it would be likewise if you, on your travels, have churches that you think would value someone to come and support them and to help them look at mission and give them some fresh eyes and perspective, then we'd love you to introduce them to us.
Fantastic. On that note, I'll remind everybody it's the Crick Boat Show at the next weekend. You might see both one of those. We've got some branded tubs for churches, but also for marinas. We've got an electronic payment thing now for people to give card payments. All good, all sort of necessary. Keep us in mind. I will be with Bob on Friday at the Baptist Assembly. And we'll see where that goes. But then our next webinar is with the charity Forces Veterans Afloat at the start of June. Did I say the 1st of June? The 3rd of June? Quite soon into June anyway. I think I put it on one of the emails. And then obviously loads more coming down later in the year. But it's 8 o'clock and I'm turning into a pumpkin. Thank you, Bob. Much appreciated. And,
thank you very much,
Bob. Thank you
Bob.
for your time.
Thank you, all you wonderful chaplains and friends, and for turning up and taking a part. Okay. God bless you all.
Thank you very much.
Bless you.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bob,
Bye.
Bob, what's the best email for you, Bob?
Bob@ruralmissions.org.uk.
Oh, something on the way. Cheers.
Right.
So an hour flies by, doesn't it?
There you go.
Yeah.
Perfect timing.
Thank you. I'm going to stop recording. If I can remember. Stop recording. Okay. So now we can debrief unvideoed.
Yeah. Or we could